Hello, and everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, Design Your Co-op Store. My name is Joel Brock, and I'm helping out Food Co-op Initiative with these webinars. And Food Co-op Initiative is proud to present this series of webinars for startup co-op organizers and their supporters. Food Co-op Initiative is a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing support and resources to people organizing new food co-ops around the U.S. They've helped 70 new co-ops open grocery stores and are working with 120 more communities that are organizing co-ops. They're here to help you get started right down the path and find the help you need along the way. If you are just getting started, please give them a call, introduce yourself, learn about the resources. There's contact information and a mailing list on the website at foodcoopinitiative.coop. The work of FCI is supported by grants from the USDA, the National Co-op Bank, National Co-op Grocers Association, the Co-op Foundation, and the Cooperative Fund of New England. They're also supported by donations from co-ops and their members, just like you. Thanks, everybody. We couldn't do it without you. I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping for today's webinar. We'll be recording it, and it will be available shortly after the presentation on YouTube and on the Food Co-op Initiative website, where there's an extensive library of other webinars on topics ranging from what to do first through hiring a GM. And make sure you sign up for the next webinar in October, on October 21st, which is What is a Feasibility and Market Study with Debbie Suasuna of CDS Consulting. If you have questions during the webinar, you can post them on the YouTube page. Just make sure you're logged in there, and feel free to try that out right now. You can say hi, introduce yourself, and let us know what co-op you're from. You can go ahead and do that in the comments right now. And if you have any questions during the webinar at all, before, during, or after, feel free to just leave those in the comments box, and we'll have some space at the end of the presentation to hopefully cover all of your questions. So our guest today is Nicole Klimek of CDS Consulting. Say hi, Nicole.
Hi, everybody.
Nicole has 10 years of design and planning experience and has designed over 100 co-ops and over 350 grocery stores. Before joining CDS Consulting Co-op, she worked for United Natural Foods, UNFI, the largest natural foods distributor. Nicole's grocery store plans incorporate green practices, including LEED certification, efficient operations, and comfortable shopping experiences while staying on budget. Nicole is particularly interested in how communities are created through good design and sees food co-ops as a big part of what makes a place livable. We hope you enjoy today's webinar. I'm going to pass it off to Nicole. Take it away, Nicole.
Hi, everybody, and thank you so much for watching our webinar. Today, I really want to have you guys be able to walk away from this with a better understanding of the process you need to design your store. I kind of have things arranged around the 4 cornerstones in 3 stages so that you know what to do at each stage of your design process and kind of who does what. I'm going to wait till there it is. First, I want to address something, a common misconception that I have out there a lot, whether it's at seminars I'm doing or when I talk to stores, is the difference between interior design and store planning and design. People think that when they hire me as a store planner, I will come in and that is what people are going to see when they walk into your store, and that's not how it is. Interior design is what people see, and store planning is what people feel. So if someone walks in and they love your signage, and they love your wood, and they love your flooring and lighting, If I'm the interior designer, that's me, but otherwise it's really more how a store operates and functions, the type of merchandising that you're doing, and the equipment. That would be the store planning. And obviously you can see interior design is more the signage and anything that you would see, more visuals, graphics, flooring, lighting, and all of that. So getting that out of the way, I'm going to talk about both a little bit so you have an understanding of the differentiation between them and then how they flow together. There we go. So the first thing that we really have to get through is design phases and what they actually mean. So when I go in and I say schematic design to someone, they may not know what that actually means. And at the end of that phase, you will have a conceptual drawing that will show whether or not your space and your site is conducive to a grocery store. So there are times where some startups have 3, 4, 5 different options, and it's really important that we are able to take a look at it and figure out, is it feasible? Can you receive into the store? How is it going to operate? Is it going to be really expensive for build-out costs? And we kind of compare the pros and cons of each one, and then by the end of the phase, you're able to say, yes, this is the way that we want to go, this is the great schematic design that we have, and this is how our store is going to look, operate, and function. After that, we move into preliminary design, and that's when things really start to flesh out. While schematic is definitely to scale, we start placing actual equipment during preliminary design, and we start working on your merchandising plan, how things are going to work between the back room and the retail space, and all of those little nuances that you know you have to worry about. That happens in preliminary design. That's actually the longest stage. It takes probably 70% of your project will be in preliminary design because people are pulling construction documents and they're worried about meeting codes and all the fun stuff that you won't have to really worry about, but it does take time. After that, we move into final design, and it's actually really important. Some stores think that once you're done with preliminary design, you're ready to just go and open a store. But this is where I work really, really hard with the architects, a lot of the general contractors, and we worry about how you're going to hang some of your shelving in the back room, how you're going to have cart bumpers, where they're going to be, the style, the size, make sure that everything jives from everybody's different construction documents and the fixture plan, and everybody's on the same page. So those are the design phases, and we'll kind of like go back and forth between them, and now you can at least know what they are. All right, so first stage. You have everything organized, you're going to start a food co-op, and yay! But then it's kind of like, well, what do you do from there? And most people think that you don't have to worry about your site as much or your store planning during this phase, and you'd be kind of right, but you have to worry a little bit about it because you have to start thinking about how your co-op's going to look, what you want people to feel when they're in the space, how you want it to resonate with the community, and all of that is in that first organization stage. Sometimes I'm hired at the end of stage 1. Most of the time it's stage 2, but at this point, please at least give me a call. I can give you some consultation over the phone and go over whether it's budget numbers that you know, you're working maybe with Bill Gessner and you have some budget numbers, but you have some more detailed ones that you really want to talk about, like how much is this going to cost me, or how much is this flooring, or whatever it is. Just give me a call so I can get you a little bit on track before you actually start the whole design process. So that would be the first stage, and going on to the second stage, this is where, oh, and here's a lovely slide of some of the co-ops that I am working with or have worked with. And as we heard in the beginning, there's over 100 of you guys. It's awesome, and we just keep growing, so bring it on. Feasibility planning, so stage 2. This is definitely the part that I love because I get to take what you guys want, what your community wants, what your membership wants, and turn it into a fixture plan. This part, again, is really, really the longest part. It's also the part that has a lot of changes. It's usually in Flex, and we call it kind of like a working document. So things will move around a little bit, and we will address things that you want to see or different ideas that you have, and we'll explore how they work and work in that feasibility piece. So your team, you're going to have your steering committee, of course, and then you're going to have your supporters like FCI, the CDSCC consultants, store planner, whether it would be someone like me or somebody else, Sometimes architects will take a stab at store planning, and then you might have some of your talent, but probably not. Some people have their GM at the end of stage 2, but oftentimes it comes in at stage 3. So the last stage, implementation, is really where it really takes flight. At this point, you have, the other side, you have your feasibility, you have the direction that you want to go, and you know what it's going to look like to the community, and now it's time to like get it going. So this is where you get super, super busy. You have your site, you have your design direction, and you have the team that's ready to go. This is also where stores start to jump the gun a little bit. They don't necessarily follow the design process that, whether it would be me as a store planner or somebody else, lays out for them. There's always discussion on who does what, when they need to do things, and this is the stage where you need to be able to guide your store planner, not make decisions necessarily, but guide them as to how you want to see your store. Unfortunately, you can't wait until like your GM is on board for some of it, because we need to have a lot of these documents in place before that. So you can think a little bit about your operations. You can think a little bit about your, not necessarily merchandising, but what kind of categories you want, if you want a deli, and then let your store planner take it from there. As long as I have a direction of where you want your co-op to go, I can definitely design it, but it is something that you'll have to think about. So then once you have that store plan in place, then comes a really, really, really fun part, and that is the interior design. That is what everybody sees, it's what everybody feels, everyone loves it, and that's really the way to get how you want to be seen to your community out to your community. So, awesomeness. And then we'll go on to some examples. So I've laid out a couple pictures of stores that I have worked with or am working with, and some of the things that we are either changing, some things that they're doing really well, some things that at least need to be considered. This is Common Ground in Urbana, Illinois, and they are fantastic at their strong brand identity and their interior design. Everything is very thought through. When we do new merchandising items, everybody's on the same page. It's very cohesive. The store planner thought really well about good sightlines for the product, which in stores you really have to think about when someone enters in, what they're going to see, what they're going to experience, and can they see the rest of the store, or are they just kind of hit with one department and they're stopped. They also have really well thought out displays, and again that goes back to that interior design and really thinking about each and every piece instead of just kind of hodgepodging it together and throwing in whatever is available. So then the next picture is Tidal Creek in Wilmington, North Carolina. A smaller store, but they do a really, really good job of wayfinding and signage. Everything is very clear. They have really good aisle space, which is very important, and what a store planner will know. You have to have certain depths, and you have to have certain widths, and you have to have certain areas to make sure that people, product, shoppers, and all of that can get through. And Tidal Creek has always done really well at that, even in their small space, so it's possible. They also have a lot of flexible space for a lot of different displays, like that wine display that's there, maybe some case stacks or some sales and all of that, but all of that is thought out ahead of time and then put into place. So very awesome, that store. And the next one is Outpost, and all of their stores are very unique and they're very well designed for the interiors as well as the store planning. They have very neat and clean and tight organizing and merchandising, and everything always looks like it was supposed to be there, and it usually was. People are working all day long at that. They also have, like, while every single store of theirs is different, it's very important to make sure that every store has somewhat of the same feel so that your shoppers are able to understand where they're at, that it is their co-op, you know, that brand identity kind of thing. And you definitely want to bring that in, whether you have a small startup location or whether you have 15 locations. It's very, very important. The next picture is Common Ground again, and I really liked this one because of their branding and signage packages. It is very, very easy to walk through their store and know where you're at, where you're going to get your fruits and juices, and what aisle you're in. They also have really good aisle width and a clear retail floor instead of having a bunch of different hodgepodge of displays and shippers that tend to clutter things up, they do a very good job of keeping that clear. Equipment-wise and even lighting-wise, they do LED lights in their cases, and that's really great for product, but you can also do it throughout your store, and your store planner and interior designer will kind of work with you to figure out how you want your store to feel lighting-wise to make sure there's no like dark caves that you're walking down. And that would be that one. Biggest question is always who does what and when do they do it? We kind of went through a little bit, but this is a little more detailed list of it. It also breaks it down to who you need or what you need to hire for, what you can do yourself, and what you can just save for your GM and kind of take it off your plate. Stage 1 is that market research and business plan. That part you kind of have to go outside your expertise. Sometimes you don't, but usually you do to get a really good product. Doing yourself is obviously that outreach, the communications, the leadership, making connections. All of that is on you, and it's fantastic. And stage 2, that is, like I said, I come in sometimes after stage 1, but it's usually stage 2. And you want to do your store design, financial planning, site surveys, feasibility, whether that is in the site itself, 2 or 3 sites, whatever that looks like. That would be something that you need to bring in. You're going to be doing all the background stuff like setting the board, your incorporation, all of that stuff, and then a little bit of the programming. Now, when I say programming and we talk about that, people usually get a little put off because they think that that's something that they need to save for the general manager. And I'm going to clear the air on that one, that you have to think about it a little bit, because as a store planner, I need direction. I can look at your data and I can look at your numbers, but overall, I don't know what your community wants better than you do. So if you tell me you need a deli and we talk a little bit about what you want in it, or what kind of produce department you have, are you going to have a lot of local producers? I need to know that stuff up front so I'm able to design a store that can meet your sales goals, get those projections out there, and make sure that it can operate to the best of your ability before you bring on your GM. But you can definitely leave that merchandising, the store operations, who is going to do some of the hiring, and all of the like nitty-gritty details to the GM. And then at that point, the GM and I will probably work pretty closely together through the rest of that stage, and also through stage 3. This is when mechanical, electrical, plumbing, equipment, whether I do equipment specifications or your store planner does, or you outsource that, that is something that you'll have to hire for, because you're probably not going to know as much as they are, but your input's always welcome. Doing yourself is that design review. It's really important to not have a lot of changes, so it is critical that you do that design review with anyone who's going to have a say in the end result. Hiring the GM and some of that initial marketing of the fixture plan, what your store is going to look like. You'll have drawings by then, you'll have images, you'll have colors, and all of that really fun stuff to start doing a lot of that participation piece. And then again, saving for the GM is the merchandising, equipment review, all the product ordering, and all of that stuff that they're going to do to run your store. At that point, you can just leave it up to them. All right, so a couple tips. Be clear, be consistent. I always tell stores, blue to you may be different than blue to me. What you see, I need to understand what you want, and I need to implement that. So we have to have very clear communication. Going back to the design review process, changes are very expensive, they're time consuming, and they affect everybody on the design team. So if you were going to make a change, whether that be moving your shelving run over 4 feet because someone told you it was a good idea, or you hired a GM and they want to redo everything and don't want to do a bulk anymore and want to add more grocery. All of that affects every single person in your budget and your timeline. It will add on to it. It will take a lot of money. So be very careful when you're doing your design review process that it is the store that you want. We can make as many changes as you need in the beginning, but once we get to a certain point, there really can't be changes because you've ordered equipment, permits are pulled, done deal. Engage your members. Let them offer suggestions. It doesn't mean you have to use them, but it's a great way to promote that participation. They love to see visuals. They love to have their input heard, and it's great marketing. Listen to your design team professionals, whether that's your architect, your store planner, your interior designer. They are the experts in their field. If they say something isn't going to work, there's more than one reason for it. It may be something like a doorway. You know, you think that it can be one size, someone tells you that their store does it in a 4-foot door, but really if someone says it needs to be 6 feet because of their experience with multiple stores, I would go with a design professional. And it all rounds out to that communication piece. Everyone needs to be on the same page the entire process, and that way no one is duplicating work, no one is wondering where they're at in the design process, and everything goes really, really smoothly. All right, so I think Susie might be back on, but if not, Joel, you can take it from here.
That was fantastic. Thank you, Nicole. There was so much good stuff in there. So this is the Q&A portion of our webinar. So if you've got questions for our resident expert, Nicole, here, feel free to drop those in the YouTube comments section. We've already got a couple that we can get started with, and we've got about 10 minutes for questions, so we can probably get a bunch answered. So drop those in the comments box if you have them, and obviously Nicole's info is up on the screen here, which you should furiously jot down so you can call her with all of your questions. So our first question that we've got here for you, Nicole, is what is the difference between designing a grocery store and designing a food co-op?
There are a lot of differences, actually. Business model aside, someone who designs co-ops knows how to communicate and work with them, and knows the decision-making process is very different than either an independently owned or a publicly traded company. I've worked with both, and they both have their nuances. But also, design-wise, the standards are a little bit different. Aisle widths tend to be different in conventional stores. Even the equipment is different. A produce case in a co-op is about 6 to 8 inches narrower than it is in a conventional food store. And because of the way that they receive and operate in the back room, also affects the equipment on the sales floor. So we need to make sure that we can accommodate for the way that they're operating. And that's something that most people actually don't pay much attention to, or I hear a lot of architects that can and do you have some very nice designs, but there are always something that is maybe a little bit off about it just because they don't have that experience with co-ops.
Fascinating. No, it is. It actually, it actually is the details, the specifics around dimensions of even just like appliances and things like that. It's a very nuanced world. The store design world. So we do have another question, and I think you touched on this a little bit, but maybe you could expand. The question is, what are the roles for someone like you versus an architect that a startup may be working with?
A lot of the roles are similar. In the beginning of the project, when the architect and the store planner are both hired, we always sit down and go over roles, responsibilities, and scope of services, because there are a lot of things that you could hire your architect for that I do, and vice versa. An example would be something to do with your electrical. You know, I can lay out where your electrical outlets need to be and the specifications for them, but so can an architect. The few things that we can't do is I am not a licensed architect in your area per se, so they're going to know all the local codes, and they're going to give those to me, and I will incorporate them into the fixture plan. An architect is not going to know the equipment needed for a food co-op, so that's something that I would do. We work very closely together, and the design disciplines need to, you know, jive with each other, but the ultimate end result is very different.
Great. We have another question here. So you said that it's important to know what you want, for example, a deli or a bakery. How will we know that a deli or bakery will be financially viable for our food co-op? And the follow-up is, who can help us figure this out?
That would actually be your store planner. We will look at all the options that you think your community wants or you know your community wants. Because your membership may say they want a bakery, but we'll go over what that would do to your sources and uses, your labor and operations budget, your overall budget for equipment, also space, and then we'll weigh the pros and cons. How much does a deli make per year for a store your size or in your area? I have all of that data, and most store planners do. So we just have to really compare and weigh the pros and cons. And again, like it's very hard, and it's very boards don't want to make those decisions because they shouldn't necessarily be your decisions, but it's just a guideline until you get that GM on board. Because if you decide you want to add a bakery or a juice bar at some point, we haven't designed for that. You can always take something away and fill it with grocery shelving. That's very easy to do, but you can't add a lot of cases or equipment without adding a lot to your bottom dollar.
Great. And I think probably have time for maybe one or maybe two other questions. So the next question for you, Nicole. If we're a new co-op and don't have a lot of money to hire your services during stage 1, what could we do to ensure we don't make wrong decisions early on?
Call me. I'm not going to charge you for a phone call. You don't have to hire me professionally at all or until you're ready. If you have questions, I will always take the time to answer them. I can give you all of the documentation that you may need, whether it's what should you look for in a site, what makes a site feasible, or what kind of receiving do you need to have, how does your trash and all that work with your site, or hey, how much does a deli do on average per year? I can go through all of that with you so that you're not making the wrong decisions and can move forward with your whole project. Probably a little bit quicker than you wanted to.
Fantastic. We'll have to throw your phone number back up there since you're so free with it. Well, okay, so I think that's probably all the time we have for questions unless there's any more coming in, and it doesn't look like it. I think we got all the questions. So, great. Thank you so much, Nicole, and thanks for everybody who's joined us. And if there was a question that didn't get answered, we'll put your info back up on the screen there. So if there was a question that didn't get answered, or you want some personal attention, that's what Food Co-op Initiative is there for. So you can contact Food Co-op Initiative at info@fci.coop. And also the slides from today will be available after the show on the Food Co-op Initiative website. Just follow the link in the YouTube video. We'll post it in the comments afterwards. So next month's webinar, just a quick sneak peek. It's a what is a feasibility study anyway? With Debbie Suasuna of CDS Consulting Co-op. If you've ever had a market study done, it was probably from her. So sign up for that, and the registration link is on your screen. And here is the email info for Food Co-op Initiative, and feel free to email them with any or all of your questions. So thanks again to everyone who joined us today. Sorry if we got a little bit of a late start. And thanks very much to Nicole. We really appreciate you taking the time and being so giving with your knowledge. Yeah, feel free to sign up for next month's webinar, and we will see you there. Have a great week. Have a great month, everybody.